The Kingdom of Macedonia, one of the most important states of the Hellenistic period, was founded in the 7th century BC. The kingdom rose to prominence during the reign of Philip II and was able to become one of the most powerful states in the region. After Philip II, his son, Alexander of Macedonia, who ascended the throne, was able to expand the kingdom's lands from the Balkans to Anatolia, and from there all the way to Central Asia and India. As a result, he created an empire of a magnitude that no one could even have imagined. However, after great Alexander closed his eyes to life at the age of 32, these lands were first divided among his commanders, and later, in 146 BC, they were completely brought to ruin by the Roman Empire. So what happened that the state of great Alexander, who had brought even the Persian Empire, the greatest and most powerful empire of its time, to its knees, collapsed in such a short period of time? In this video, we will learn the answer to this question and much more. Let us watch to the end. Kronos, considered the founder of the Kingdom of Macedonia, managed to bring the Macedonians together and, according to many historians, founded the Kingdom of Macedonia in 808 BC. However, although this kingdom was not considered as barbaric as the Persians by the Greeks, in terms of civilization they were regarded as inferior to the Greeks. The coldness between the two civilizations began to ease in the 700s BC with the Greeks establishing colonies around Thrace. It was precisely as a result of this that Macedonia, which was able to show progress in culture and civilization, some time later gradually began to take a place and role on the political stage of the region. In 550 BC, during the reign of the great Cyrus, the Persians toppled the kingdom of Lydia in Anatolia and, seizing many lands, annexed them to the empire. Continuing on, the rapidly advancing Persians, after capturing the Babylonian Empire and Egypt, once again turned their gaze toward the Balkans. In such a situation, the Macedonians, who felt the danger to themselves, were left helpless in the face of these advances of the Persians. During the time of the Persian ruler Darius I, in the period of the Persian-Scythian campaigns, although the Kingdom of Macedonia accepted the authority of the Persians, they never fully handed over their lands to Persian rule. In 480 BC, during the years of the reign of Alexander I, while the Persians were trying to capture all the Greek city-states, Alexander I, being forced, even provided soldier support to the Persians. However, these marches of the Persians met with strong resistance from the Greeks, foremost with the Spartan king Leonidas. Thus these marches of the Persians ended in failure and they were forced to retreat toward the east of Thrace. From this moment on, Alexander I set as his goal to make use of the Greek states with a policy of serving the interest of the Kingdom of Macedonia. He carried out political maneuvers in favor of Macedonia, sometimes supporting Sparta and sometimes Athens. After Alexander I died in 454 BC, the Kingdom of Macedonia was heading toward fragmentation. Perdiccas, who came to power after Alexander I, was having difficulty uniting the tribes. The tribes within Macedonia were, one could say, completely independent in their own affairs. In 434 BC, Perdiccas' younger brother, taking behind him the support of the Greek state of Athens, began a struggle for the throne with his brother. Perdiccas, for his part, angered by this matter, gave support to the uprisings within Athens. When Athens and Sparta were waging the Peloponnesian War in 431 BC, the Macedonian king Perdiccas gave support to the Spartan side, and by this ensured the weakening of Athens. However, during the wars between Sparta and Athens, Perdiccas closed his eyes to life, and his son Archelaus became the new Macedonian king. Finally, in 404 BC, with the Spartans besieging Athens and Athens surrendering, alongside Sparta, Macedonia to emerge from this war strengthened. After Archelaus ascended the throne, with the reforms he carried out, Macedonia achieved much progress in state administration, army, and trade, and was able to reunite Macedonia. In particular, the reforms he carried out to organize the Macedonian army, the fortresses he had built, and the development of the equipment of the cavalry and infantry forces were very important steps for the strengthening of the country. However, in 399 BC, on a hunt he had gone on, Archelaus died, and with this a great civil war began in Macedonia. After 7 years of internal turmoil, in 392 BC Amyntas III ascended the throne, but the unity in the country had already long been broken. However, despite all these negative events, the new king was able to unite around himself all the tribes that were estranged, and by this was able to once again ensure unity in Macedonia. With war breaking out again between Athens and Sparta, Amyntas III ensured the sale of timber needed for weapons to both sides, and revived Macedonia's economic situation as well. In general, Amyntas III took his place in history as a king who did very successful work for the revival of Macedonia during the time he was on the throne. After the death of Amyntas III in 359 BC, his one-year-old son Amyntas IV passed to the throne. But since the new king's age was young, his uncle Philip II, gathering all authority into his hands, declared himself the new king of Macedonia. As soon as Philip II took power into his hands, he immediately began conquests and managed to add a large part of Thrace to Macedonian lands. His dreams did not end with Thrace alone. For this very reason, gathering the army generals from all four corners of the country in the capital, he carried out a strategy of governing the army from the center. He began to make reforms in the army, thus increasing the length of the spears the soldiers had. He made them for meters, and so that the soldiers' balance would not be broken during battle, he reduced the diameter of the shields they carried in their other hands. At the same time, he increased the defensive and offensive skills of the Macedonian cavalry. His first conquests were the fertile lands of Thrace. His conquests here were successful, and he turned his gaze toward the Chalcidice Peninsula in Thrace. This region, which possessed valuable silver mines, in fact belonged to Athens. For this reason, the Athenian army, not turning a blind eye to the events taking place, tried to react immediately, but could not defeat the strong Macedonian army, and thus the entire region passed under the authority of Macedonia. Relying on the strength of his army, Philip II this time wanted to conquer the region of Thessaly in the south. The conquest of Thessaly, in the eyes of Philip II, meant seizing political power in Greece as a whole, and if it were successful, he thought that he would create the Great Greek Union. In these periods, the Greek city-states were waging wars among themselves, and Philip II, seeing this too as a chance for himself, entering Thessaly, defeated the Athenian army once more, and the conquest was completed. Athens knew very well that Philip II would not be content with this, and for this reason, in order to stand against Macedonia, it created a union in which many Greek city-states participated. In 338 BC, Philip II, together with his son Alexander, began to advance toward the interior of Greece, and the allied Greek army, hearing of this, confronted the Macedonian army near Chaeronea. The Macedonians won the war thanks to Alexander, and with this Greece passed under the control of Macedonia, and Philip II formed the Hellenic League against the Persian threat. After forming the Hellenic League, Philip II holds a meeting with the main figures of the Greek region and, citing the increasing Persian pressure as the main reason, invites everyone to the campaign he will carry out against the Persian Empire. The main purpose of the campaign is to save the Greeks in western Anatolia, who had bowed to the Persians. Along with this, Philip II wanted to take revenge for the destructive campaign the Persians had carried out against Greece in 480 BC. Taking all this into account, Philip II in 336 BC sends a vanguard force of 10,000 men to Anatolia. However, without being able to see the result of this campaign, he perishes as a result of an assassination at the wedding of his daughter Cleopatra. Alexander, the son of Philip II, was born in the capital Pella in 356 BC. Even in his childhood years, Alexander was of a courageous temperament, and at the same time, with his intelligence and ruling abilities, he gave the signal that he would be the ruler of the future. Taking into account the education of his son Alexander, Philip II, while he was still 13 years old, invited Aristotle to Pella and ensured that he taught him lessons in the fields of philosophy, geography, logic, medicine, and craft. After his father's death, the only thing on the mind of Alexander, who passed to the throne, was the lands of the Persian Empire. In 334 BC, Alexander, gathering his army, set out toward the straits. His army was composed mainly of Macedonians, Thracians, Illyrians, and, of course, units coming from the Greek city. According to what the historians say, this army consisted of 48,000 infantry, 6,500 cavalry, and 120 ships. In this period, although the Persian Empire looked very strong on paper, it was preoccupied with many internal problems. Thus, from the assassinations and plots occurring in the administration, even the rulers themselves received their share. Alexander, turning such a moment into an opportunity, after crossing his army over the strait, experienced the first Persian resistance in the area of present-day Biga. Here Alexander, who confronted an army composed of Persians and mercenary Greeks, thanks to his heavy cavalry, crushed the Persians. Alexander, who obtained his first victory, would not be content with this, and he advanced southward along the western Anatolian coast. What was interesting was that all the coastal cities he passed through submitted to Alexander, and however much tax they had been paying to the Persians, that much they willingly agreed to give to Alexander as well. The first serious resistance against Alexander on the part of the Persians was in the area of present-day Bodrum. Alexander, who conquered Bodrum within 24 hours, continued on his way and captured all the cities in southern Anatolia as well. Afterward, he began to head toward the center of Anatolia, and there, coming to the city of Gordian, he was able to add it to his lands. In this period, because there were problems with Alexander's health, he stayed for a while in Cilicia, and as soon as he recovered, he continued his march in the Persian Empire. However, upon entering the territory of Syria, after receiving news of a great army awaiting him in the lands of Issus, he had to turn back. In 333 BC, Alexander finally came face to face with this great army. Alexander, together with his cavalry troops, rapidly attacking the left wing of the Persian army, crushed their left wing, and following this victory, he rapidly turned toward the army in the center. Here was Darius III. The Persian soldiers, seeing Alexander's rapid and devastating attacks, soon began to flee from the battlefield. Darius III, from the scene he saw, understood that he would definitely be defeated in this battle, and he too, like his soldiers, leaving the battlefield, began to flee. However, while fleeing, his mother, wife, daughter, and all the spoils he carried with him remained behind. Thus, at the end of the battle, Alexander, alongside a great victory, also captured the family of Darius III. Although in return for his family, Darius III offered Alexander 260 tons of gold, Alexander did not agree to this. Despite this, he treated the family of Darius III very well and even, providing them with servants, ensured that they lived comfortably. Alexander, who continued his campaign along the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea, was annexing the territories belonging to this area to his lands without meeting any resistance. However, one of the cities located here did not surrender to Alexander. This was the city of Tyre, and in return for this resistance, Alexander, using siege towers prepared with the most modern techniques of that period and various siege techniques, organized the siege, and as a result managed to capture the city. Alexander, who continued on his way, entered Egypt in 332 BC. The Egyptians greeted Alexander as a savior. Even the Egyptian priests declared him the god of Zeus Amen. Alexander, who stayed here for a while, founded the city of Alexandria, which would in the future be the capital of Egypt. After staying 1 year in Egypt, Alexander again directed his gaze eastward. Darius III, for his part, was gathering a great army with the aim of taking revenge on Alexander. And the awaited moment had come. They confronted each other again in northern Mesopotamia, at Gaugamela. This war was the greatest and bloodiest war that had taken place between the two states up to that time. Darius III, who suffered a heavy defeat as a result of the battle, lost, one could say, all of his army of 250,000 men. In the end, he again, fleeing from the battlefield, crossed into the lands of Iran. Alexander, for his part, entering Susa, one of the most important cities of the Persian Empire, captured a great treasure belonging to the empire. Alexander, not wanting to lose much time here, entered from Susa into Persepolis, the capital of the empire, and met with no resistance. Alexander, who stayed in Persepolis for about 5 months, set out again to pursue Darius III. However, Darius III, before Alexander could catch him, had been killed in the lands of Bactria by his own commanders. Alexander, who reached Bactria, had the dead king buried in a manner befitting kings, and declared himself the sole ruler of the Persian lands. After great Alexander's magnificent victory, the population setting out from Macedonia and Greece began to settle in the lands cleansed of the Persians. With this, the Greek and Macedonian population in the lands of Anatolia began to increase. Alexander, for his part, with the many spoils he had captured, had dwellings built for the settlement of people in these lands. In addition, with this the trade between the east and the west began to develop much more. In 327 BC, Alexander departed from Bactria and began to advance toward India. During this march he added northern India to the ranks of his lands, but he did not want to be content with this either. He wanted to conquer eastern India as well, but his soldiers and commanders were not eager to go further. However much Alexander tried to inspire them, the army, being far from their homes, did not agree to go forward, and Alexander made the decision to turn back. While returning to the center of his kingdom, Alexander had already begun to behave completely like a Persian king. Thus, he established pressure over the Greek cities and, going even further, ordered that everyone treat him as a god king. Those who opposed him he would either have thrown into prison or have executed directly. This was received negatively both by the people and by the scholars of the period. In 323 BC, while Alexander was preparing a plan for a campaign to Arabia, as a result of a fever illness he contracted, he died while still 33 years old. After Alexander's death, his generals began a struggle for the throne to become his successor, and this would cause the fragmentation and weakening of Macedonia. Thus, the state founded by great Alexander, who had once brought the Persian Empire to its knees and ruled over many parts of the world known at that time, was occupied and brought to ruin by the Roman Empire in 148 BC.